Entertainment venues will remain closed until phase 4 of reopening in Washington, but that hasn't stopped entertainers from a popular Spokane nightclub from lifting people's spirits through music. Photojournalist Brett Alberry introduces you to the Riddler Piano Barge.
And I was playing down at the piano bar when it was Giuliano Brothers, and when they decided to quit, I bought it. Been there for 5 years, and Jazz has been playing for a couple years because he wasn't old enough. Been there since he was 18.
I was always around music. Our Christmas is like a giant jam session. It's pretty funny.
It's been packed. It's been 100 reservations per night. It's been wonderful. We were packed Saturday night. We were closed on Tuesday. And all of a sudden it was just gone overnight. And we're pushing 6 months now since we've shut down. Take a little vacation, which I've needed anyway, but hey, you know, it's been a long time.
When I was 18 years old, I would always do little side jobs around here, and I got a phone call to go do a cleanup job on like a beach over on Deer Lake, and they had a dock. They said, like, we need you to clean this beach up, but you need to take the dock with you. And I was like, well, let's build a stage, Dad. And he's like, what? Build a stage? Like a floating dock that we can play music on. Yeah, they're melting away. And then we took it out, and we were doing little gigs, and then we retired it because we're like, we don't really have time to go out on the lake because we're playing music every weekend. I think in the moment, like when we built it, we weren't really thinking like what we're gonna be doing in 2 years. We're just kind of like just grinding, like working hard in the moment, and that's what like kind of blindsided us. This whole thing's been crazy, you know.
I think when Sean came aboard a couple years ago, when it was like over 2 years ago, wasn't your first performance on the barge?
No, it wasn't.
Oh. So anyway,
that would be a good story.
It wasn't. It wasn't.
Go with it, man. He came in and was jamming with us. We're like, hey, you want a job? And he's like, no, I'm going on a cruise ship for 2 months, but I'll be back.
And then he came back, yeah. And Sean's like the prodigy, a piano player.
I'm gonna show you a good time. I'm getting messages saying like, our family's been so like depressed. We've been at home, we've been locked up, and it just like blows my mind how happy we're making people. We're happy too to be playing music because it's like, that's our passion. The perfect word is love. Everybody's like, life is good, and that's what they get away from it, you know? People are screaming, hollering. They're like, you know, they drop their anchors, they're in their boats, they're, you know, just like, it's like the coolest thing in the world.
A convicted child murderer is back making headlines. Jake Eakin, child killer, now turned full-time anti-abortion protester.
It was a brutal case that shocked the small town of Ephrata and made history at the state level because at the time the murderers were just kids themselves.
Evan Savoy and Jake Eakin were both found guilty in the death of Craig Sorger. We did reach out to Sorger's family for this story tonight. They did not get back to us, but I did sit down with Jake Eakin. It is his first on-camera interview in almost 15 years. He tells me it's because of his violent past that he's now working to save lives.
Chuck Sorger wants justice for his son's death.
That they were surprised by how graphic the details.
Crime of murder in the first degree is charged.
At the tender age of 12, Jake Eakin went from a small-town boy in eastern Washington to accused murderer.
911 emergency.
Yes, I have a missing child.
It was February 2003. 13-year-old Craig Sorger was viciously beaten and stabbed to death in a wooded area near his home in Ephrata.
Ephrata ambulance, Ephrata Fire Department, respond to Oasis Park, southwest of the ponds.
His mom says 2 boys came to her door, Evan Savoy and Jake Eakin. They were asking if Craig, who was considered mildly autistic, could come out and play.
I don't trust who he is with, is my problem.
It was the last time she saw her son alive.
How long's he been missing?
About 3 hours.
Craig's body was found that night covered in leaves and dozens of stab wounds.
Right at this point in PD, they're going to treat it as a homicide.
This is the tree they said they were climbing.
Court records show police immediately suspected Savoy and Eakin. And despite their initial claims that Craig fell out of a tree, both boys were charged as adults with first-degree murder, making Jake the youngest in Washington history to face those charges as an adult.
Mr. Eakin, to the charge of murder in the first degree, how do you plead?
But in 2006, Eakin abruptly reversed course. He accepted a plea deal on second-degree murder by complicity.
You solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth under penalty of perjury.
In court, he testified that Savoy had been the ringleader, first attacking Craig with a large rock, then beating him with tree branches and stabbing him dozens of times with a knife.
You say you want to go to King's Free?
Jake was eventually sentenced to 14 years in prison and Savoy 26 years.
Craig got justice today, didn't he?
At that time, Jake tells me he was filled with anger.
You were 12 years old. You basically grew up in prison.
I spent a great deal of time in lockup, in solitary confinement because of trouble that I got into. And there was a block of time where I spent 14 months in there, and then I got out, and then I went back into there and served another 9 months. So that's a good, like, 2.5 years that I spent pretty much by myself. And it was during that time that I kind of like started to educate myself.
Jake says he became an avid reader, devouring works about the Nazi Holocaust, slavery, and the Bible.
When the Lord saved me, I was in a county jail.
After escaping from work release and being rearrested in South Dakota, Jake was then sent to the Yakima County Jail, where he says he found God.
It was like a radical transformation.
But even with his newfound faith, Jake floundered a bit when he was released from jail in 2017. That all changed, though, he says, while watching an abortion protest video on YouTube.
We are not criminals here. We're here to save lives.
Something happened in that moment where like a switch went off, and the Lord kind of opened my eyes to the preborn and abortion.
Jesus Christ loves these children inside this place.
Since then, Jake has called himself an abolitionist, staging Planned Parenthood protests and anti-LGBTQ demonstrations across the region.
We go to college campuses and we engage with the students.
We do not feel safe with him here.
Instead of shrinking away from the public eye, as many ex-prisoners often do, Jake now seems to welcome the spotlight. Some say a bit too much.
He wants attention.
Like Paul Dillon of Planned Parenthood in Spokane.
That's his goal, and that means is just a way to bring more attention to himself.
What does it mean for your clients who are trying to walk through the doors of Planned Parenthood and are met with that type of protest?
Yeah. No patient should ever come through our doors and have to face that kind of harassment, intimidation.
So why use such abrasive tactics to get attention?
Well, think of it this way. So if we had a Holocaust of 2-year-olds instead of preborn children, our response would be radically different, right? And so the reason that I'm an abolitionist is I believe in being consistent, meaning I believe there's children being murdered down the street from where I live.
What about the people who call you the worst kind of hypocrite?
Because of my past?
Mm-hmm.
So this is where the beautiful thing is for me, is that we serve a God that can forgive murderers.
And I served 14 years in prison for this murder.
And I am a murderer, been redeemed through Christ.
And Jesus Christ had value.
That same grace is being offered to all these mothers and fathers that are taking their children to Planned Parenthood. And that's why I'm out there.
Long before skiers or snowboarders hit the slopes at Schweitzer Mountain, the resort's snow safety team is out checking conditions and often using explosives to trigger controlled avalanches to stabilize the snow.
So here at Schweitzer, how often do you guys do avalanche mitigation using the charges and whatnot?
Well, this season we're up to about 20 days, so we're in quite a bit.
When Jeff Thompson is not patrolling Schweitzer, he's teaching avalanche courses and he's an avalanche rescue dog handler.
Yeah, so they're all trained to ski with us.
Last month, he took 3-year-old Abby and another dog to Silver Mountain. On January 7th, an avalanche on Wardner Peak killed 3 skiers and injured 4 more. Video shot by the Montana-based helicopter crew 2 Bear Air captured the frantic search for buried skiers.
In this day and age of technology, that this is still our best tool to use. It's unbelievable how good they are. If anything, the handlers are usually the ones that limit their ability by not understanding how good they really are.
He says Abby and his other dog were key in finding 2 of the deceased victims.
But they were both very helpful in finding the remaining victims when we got there.
Well, good morning. In our 8 o'clock hour here on Up with KREM, it is winter week. We do want to check out what we're doing across the region. So this morning, again, I'm detailing avalanche mitigation plans here at Silver Mountain. Dana Marie McNichol is live at Mount Spokane, and meteorologist Jeremy Legoo is live at Schweitzer Mountain Resort.
We're talking warm temperatures. I know I'm standing out here at a ski resort hoping for snow, but we're just a little bit too warm right now.
I'm live here at Mount Spokane, and there's a lot of snow. We have a snow cap behind us, getting ready to pack it all for the season. Jim here, the general manager, is going to explain what you can expect this year and some of the changes.
Yeah, absolutely. So first thing is safety for our staff, safety for the customers. But we've been working kind of tirelessly to get open for the season.
Silver Mountain has made some steps to improve the safety here on the mountain and work on avalanche mitigation. So new this year, if skiers heading to the mountain, they'll notice a new weather station added to the top of Wardner Peak. Now again, that is close to the avalanche location from earlier this year. To track all the changes for all of our area ski resorts, we're making it very easy for you this morning. All you have to do is text SKI to 509-448-2000.
Colby Anderson, who would have been a junior at Kendrick High School this fall, passed away this offseason in a very tragic accident. At this time, we ask everyone, please pause for a moment of silence for Colby.
I feel his presence all the time, especially on the football field.
If you go to Kendrick's football field on a Friday night, the number 42 seems to be everywhere. But the one place you won't find it is on a jersey for the Tigers.
I think they did it because he was such a good athlete and such a good student that they should honor him in a way that no one's probably done around here.
In fact, what Keegan Anderson is referring to has never been done in Kendrick High School history. The football program decided to retire Colby's number after the car accident that took his life this summer.
I wouldn't have, in a million years, would have suspected that that was even a possibility when they brought it in. I didn't even know if I was going to be able to stay standing up.
We weren't expecting that. We weren't expecting them to retire the jersey. When you take into account everything this community has done for us, thank you is just not enough, but it's all we have.
The school thought into the future as well, though. They will unretire the number for one player and one player only if he so chooses.
To say that, give him the opportunity if he wants it to wear that number, it's amazing. Where do you find this community?
Colby's passing obviously has had a big effect on that community. That effect will now always be present with his number enshrined forever.
I've often thought that this was to teach us a lesson. And if we had to suffer so that other people know not to take things for granted, then that was our role.
Colby's favorite saying was take it to the next level. He started using it when he started playing sports in second grade, but the phrase became the motto for his life. It's resulted in a flood of gratitude from the family in his death.
That's written on Colby's urn, and I truly believe it, that this is just another way that Colby was taking it to the next level.
And all these positive things that have come out of this, it's like he took it to the next level and he made us realize how much we appreciated him while he was on this earth.
When ballots arrive at the office, they're placed into trays and brought to a secure room until it's time to sort. The sorting machine imprints a date and tracking number, then quickly scans the envelope.
In the first pass sort, if ballots come over on this side, that means there's something wrong with them, like a missing signature. If everything's normal, they come over here where they're divided up by legislative district.
The next step is making sure the signature on the envelope matches the signature on your voter registration form. A worker trained by the Washington State Patrol compares the two images on their computer. If all is good, they okay the ballot. If the signatures don't match, they pass it on to another trained employee. That worker then looks at the physical envelope and compares it to the signature on file.
If both workers decide the signatures don't match, then the voter will be sent one of these forms that they'll need to fill out for their ballot to be counted.
Now it's time to go back through the sorter. This time the envelopes get broken down even further by precinct group. Up to 200 ballots will go together in a tray and stay together for the rest of the process. A piece of paper called the control sheet helps workers keep track of those trays and make sure they always have the right number of ballots. The next worker makes sure of that number and then finally can open the envelope with the help of a machine. They then take out the contents, ballots enclosed in privacy envelopes. If the ballot doesn't have a privacy envelope, the worker will give it one. The bigger envelope is stored securely and separately. The smaller envelopes go back into the tray and onto the next step.
Now that the ballots are totally anonymous, they can finally come out of the envelopes. Here, workers again double check the count and then make sure that the ballot is ready for the tabulation machine.
Any ballots that are crumpled or have spills or otherwise might be hard for the machine to read get set aside. A specialized team of 2 then fills out the voters' choices on a fresh ballot so it can be tabulated. Finally, it's time to count the votes. The tabulation machine scans all the ballots. If it notices something strange, like a mark it can't read, that gets saved in the computer. Then 2 different workers look at the scanned image to determine what the ballot says. If they both don't agree, a supervisor is brought in to make the call. Finally, the ballots are boxed up and stored for up to 22 months. Casey Decker, KREM 2 News.
I found out what really makes me happy is just getting fresh flowers every day. I fill my house with them. It just brings life and enjoyment, and it's helped a lot.
We had a wonderful day today. Our Lutheran church group got together and we handed out hundreds of pounds of food to the needy people in our area. It was a wonderful day, and thank you for caring.
I'm actually having a great time. I flip my vinyl records and I dance in my front room, records I haven't heard in like years, and I'm having fun with me, myself, and I, and then I study in the morning, and I'm learning a different language. So I'm using this time to extend and improve myself. That would be the best way for everybody, I think.
Hey, this is John over here in the Spokane Valley, and I have a joke for Tom Sherry. What do you call a bear with no teeth? A gummy bear.
Thank you for being out there for us as we need the most accurate news we can possibly get. We're all hanging in there, but thank you again for all of you guys being out there. It's much appreciated. Take care.
And I just want to read a quick note to you that was left in my mailbox this weekend, and it says, I hope that you know that you are very loved and cared about. You also have a lot of value, and we hope that you and your family are doing well during this pandemic.
Be happy. Do something that makes you happy a lot. We'll make it through together. Love you.
I would like verified that the numbers they're putting up from people dying from COVID-19, that it's actually people dying from the virus. Because somebody came on TV, said they were counting all the deaths, natural causes and everything, which means if that were true, the numbers that you're putting out for the virus killing people don't mean a thing.
Our sources to verify the numbers are the Journal of the American Medical Association, Johns Hopkins University, and Dr. Sally Aiken, Spokane County Medical Examiner, who also serves as the president of the National Association of Medical Examiners.
The underlying sentiment when people ask those questions seems to be that there's an over-reporting or even a falsification of the number of COVID deaths. And the data just isn't showing that.
Dr. Aiken says there are clear guidelines from the CDC for certifying deaths as due to COVID-19. A patient must have COVID symptoms and must test positive for the coronavirus. If a doctor has a compelling reason to believe a patient has died from COVID-19, but there was not a test to confirm, those cases are listed as probable or presumed.
I've seen rumors on the internet that says medical examiners are certifying any death even if it's a suicide or homicide with a positive test as COVID-19. Not true.
According to Johns Hopkins University, roughly 180,000 Americans have died from COVID-19. Nearly 1,900 Washingtonians have died from the virus, and COVID has claimed about 340 lives in Idaho. Dr. Aiken says those numbers are not over-reported. In fact, they're most likely too low.
Most likely it is, and that's for a couple of reasons. One is that there is a false negative rate for the COVID tests, and it can be fairly high. It can be as high as 1 in 5 tests that's false negative.
Remember, you need a positive test to certify a death as due to COVID-19. Aiken also cites a recent study published by the Journal of the American Medical Association. It looked at the number of U.S. deaths from March 1st through May 30th of this year, and it found there are roughly 122,000 more deaths during that time this year compared to previous years. Of those, only about 95,000 deaths were attributed to COVID-19.
So that still left 28% extra deaths beyond those 95,000 that weren't accounted for. And that probably mostly represents an undercounting of COVID deaths, because at that time there was a lack of testing. Deaths weren't probably being recognized in home settings, and for a variety of other reasons. Us doing any kind of conspiracy to inflate numbers related to COVID-19 is just laughable, because let me tell you, it wouldn't happen.
So when you gather the facts, you see that the claims that COVID-19 death numbers are being over-reported or inflated are false.
Well, welcome to KREM 2 News at noon. I'm Jen York, reporting live here in downtown Spokane. We are tracking breaking news here at the noon hour. Our region's leading health expert is out of a job. Today, in a decision effective today, Dr. Bob Lutz is no longer serving as the Spokane Regional Health District Officer. Dr. Lutz's influences impacts everyone here in Spokane County. Decisions about opening or restricting Spokane County amid the pandemic weighed heavily on his expertise. Now, currently, as you know, Spokane County remains in phase 2 of reopening.
Kelly, nobody understands what's happened. I don't mean to speak for everybody, but he was asked to resign. We don't know if he resigned. We don't know if he's terminated, but we don't have a health officer. This is public information. This is basic.
Yes, and so we're explaining where we are at right now, and we will make sure you're updated as soon as we have more information.
Is that later today? What does that mean?
Yes. Thank you. I have to hang up the press conference right now, you guys.
What time can we expect this?
Yeah, will you have another press conference later today?
I will let you know as soon as I know more. Thank you.
Will there be a board meeting later today?
Oh my gosh.
So what happens now? Dr. Lutz was leading the county's coronavirus response. This morning, Administrative Officer Amelia Clark said Spokane County's Board of Health gave her support to ask for the resignation of Dr. Lutz.
Now, in a press conference today, Clark said the decision was based on personnel issues. She did not elaborate any further. I asked her about getting rid of the county's health officer in the midst of a pandemic.
How do you justify getting rid of the health officer in the middle of this global pandemic when our local cases continue to spike?
You know, the decision to ask for the resignation of any employee is never easy. And in the case of a health officer, it's never going to be easy. And, you know, I, again, had the support of the board in doing what I needed to do.
I have stayed true to my responsibilities as a local health officer to again enforce the public health statutes of the state, control and prevent the spread of any dangerous, contagious, or infectious disease, and take such measures as I deem necessary in order to promote the public's health.
The Spokane County Board of Health meeting as we speak to discuss the firing of Dr. Bob Lutz as the county's health officer. Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Hanrahan.
Welcome everyone. I'm Whitney Ward. So that meeting has been going on now for nearly 3 hours. It is still in executive session right at this minute. We do have team coverage of everything that has been said so far. KREM 2's Amanda Rowley has been tracking this story from the very beginning. She has an update for us tonight. Hi, Amanda.
Good evening, Mark and Whitney. Yeah, the moment has arrived. We are finally learning why the Health District's Administrative Officer, Amelia Clark, asked the board to approve a termination for Health Officer Dr. Bob Lutz. She presented a laundry list of complaints against him to the board, citing professional issues and insubordination. Both Amelia Clark and Dr. Bob Lutz had 30 minutes to present to the Board of Health. Clark's reasons for requesting Dr. Lutz's termination included the following. He inappropriately used a Spokane Regional Health District letterhead. He emailed state legislators on health district issues when Clark asked him not to.
Well, guys, it's becoming more and more clear that the source of all the chaos we've really seen at the Spokane Regional Health District in the past week is this tension between the district's top 2 employees. That tension is well encapsulated in this clip we're about to show you, where one of the board members straight up asked Clark and Lutz whether they respect each other.
Dr. Lutz and also Amelia Clark, do you have mutual respect for each other in the position that you hold right now within the agency? I don't care which one answers first.
I defer to Ms. Clark.
Do I take silence as no, you don't? Is that what I'm taking?
Now, clearly a very tense and awkward moment there. Most of the meeting was along those lines as well in terms of its tone. Now, the big question, of course, will be, will that tension be enough to result in Bob Lutz's firing? Will the board decide that he's maybe more to blame for this apparent mutual contempt in a way that's so detrimental to the health district, the place would be better without him? As you've heard, we still don't know yet. They remain in executive session deliberating.
Breaking news tonight, we're finally learning why Spokane Regional Health Administrative Officer Amelia Clark requested Dr. Bob Lutz to be terminated. She presented a long list of complaints against him to the Board of Health, citing professional issues and insubordination. Good evening and thank you for joining us for KREM 2 News at 11. I'm Mark Hanrahan.
And I'm Regina Ahn. Amelia Clark says terminating Dr. Bob Lutz included several reasons, including inappropriately using a Spokane Regional Health District letterhead, emailing state legislators on health district issues when Clark asked him not to, and she also told the board they had disagreements on the district budget and use of funds.
She also accuses him of abusing his authority as health officer, and she claimed there are several bullying and retaliation complaints against him. For his part, Dr. Lutz denied the allegations and said that he wanted to keep his job. KREM 2's Amanda Rowley shares the board's discussion leading up to the decision.
Spokane City Council President Brian Beggs, council members Betsy Wilkerson and Karen Stratton all voted against terminating Dr. Bob Lutz. The rest of the board voted for it. But no matter how they voted, there was a consensus. The board wished this could have been avoided.
I'd like to make a motion that we terminate the employment with Dr. Bob Lutz immediately.
Commissioner Al French initiated the motion to terminate Dr. Bob Lutz immediately. In fact, he read a letter submitted to the board by Spokane County Sheriff Ozzie Knezevich, who worked with Dr. Lutz in the COVID-19 response.
There were several times throughout the COVID-19 response where I found myself frustrated with Dr. Lutz and his inability to make a decision and stick with it. It does not surprise me that the relationship between him and his supervisor has deteriorated. This outcome could have been predicted based upon the relationships or lack thereof he had with his supervisor and some of his employees.
Following the vote, Dr. Lutz left the meeting abruptly with no further comment from the board. Now, the board did receive more than 1,100 letters in support of Dr. Lutz, but it was just not enough to sway the board in his favor tonight. Amanda Rowley, KREM 2 News.
Breaking news tonight, more than 100 residents at the Cannon Street Warming Center in Spokane have been evicted. This is video that you see here, them getting ready, packing things up, starting the moving process. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here on KREM 2 News First at 4. I'm Whitney Ward. So as the contracts for Spokane warming centers now come to an end, some of the homeless population are now left without shelter during this coronavirus pandemic. Former Spokane City Council President and mayoral candidate Ben Stuckert posted to his Facebook page today saying this is criminal, as other city leaders are saying the removal of these residents violates Governor Inslee's ban on evictions during a pandemic. So our Tim Pham is live now in Browns Edition. That's where emotions have been running high. Tim, we know that many people are upset, so many that have actually decided to camp out in that area. So what are you seeing at this hour?
Yeah, Whitney, I can tell you that emotions are really high in this community. You think on one side you have about 100 people being forced to leave a shelter that they called home. Now they're setting up here at the park. But then on the other side of the issue, you have this community that enjoys this park and wants to be out here on a day like this, but say they don't want to because of what's going on right now. I want to show you, this is what the setup looks like right now. You can see dozens of tents have taken over Coeur d'Alene Park in Brown's Edition, and it's been very frustrating this afternoon. We've seen several arguments between the homeless and the people who live in this community, saying that they don't have a right to be here, but then the homeless say they should be able to stay here in the meantime while they figure out where they can go. Neighbors at the park, though, neighbors around the park, I should say, are not happy that they chose to set up here, because back in October, when the shelter first opened up, the community was assured that the impacts to the surrounding neighborhood would not be an issue, but they say today is proof that it has been an issue. In the last 24 hours, residents say the park has been littered with more trash. People are digging holes to use it as a restroom. And I spoke with residents today in this neighborhood and the people staying at the park, and here's what they had to say.
So now we have 110 people, nowhere to go. So a kind donation brought us tents, blankets, food, and we decided to come here.
It's no wonder that anytime the city announces something like that, neighborhoods are up in arms and they are opposing it.
Residents in this neighborhood tell me they've put in calls to 311 and Crime Check, but little has been done. As for the folks staying here at the park, they tell me they're not going anywhere until the city opens up an alternative shelter.
Amanda, what do we know about how this even happened and why city leaders weren't prepared for this sudden amount of people who are now looking for another place to go?
Well, Whitney, we just got word from the city that this warming center here on Cannon Street is not expected to reopen for about 2 weeks. Right now, about 100 people who were staying at this center have nowhere to go, and no one's really taking any responsibility of what's happening here. So here's what we know right now about the situation with the shelters in the city of Spokane. City of Spokane had a contract with Jules Helping Hands to run the Cannon Street Center, and that contract ends today at 11:59 p.m.
So you said that there has been communication with Jules Helping Hands before today. How did this happen? What happened so that they felt like they had to get people out by 11:59 when you said there was a contingency plan, or at least arrangements starting at 10 a.m. tomorrow? What happened there?
Yeah, I can't really explain where the disconnect came. They've been operating under a contract that was in place since last fall. That was a mutually agreed upon contract between both parties. It's been in place for several months now. There's been communication leading up to this over the past couple of weeks, reminders about the contract and communication as recent as yesterday to make the situation clear. So I can't speak to at this point where the breakdown happened.
What can you tell us about what has been changing here in the last few minutes?
Yeah, Whitney, I can tell you that things are starting to clear up here. There are about 12 tents left, and people are starting to clean up their belongings. And we've actually even seen people pick up trash, which has been really great. I know a lot of times people have been making quick judgments to say that they would leave a big mess here, but it's been great to see that everyone has been trying to clean up and end this situation peacefully, because it has been a very long day for everyone. I think we could all say that and agree. You can see, if you look over here now, police are moving forward. They are walking in a line, inching closer to the remaining tents. They haven't said much since we last checked in with all of you, but they did say over the loudspeakers earlier that they want this to be peaceful. They want people to get on the buses provided by the city to take them to the shelter downtown. You can see right now they are talking to the people that are here. Brian Coddington with the city telling us that this is about education right now, not enforcement, but there is a 10 p.m. curfew in the city, so people wouldn't be able to camp here past 10 o'clock, so there could be enforcement at that point.
So when we talked in the spring, we both said, look, it's going to look different this year. Can you at least give me an answer? Will you be able to distribute Tom's Turkey Drive?
Our conversation at that time was really, we think we can do it. It's going to be a drive-through. I don't have any more details, but we made the commitment in April that this was an event that we were going to stand up for.
Hi everyone, Tom Sherry here.
The first ever drive-by Tom's Turkey Drive.
Happy Thanksgiving!
Lots of energy this morning, guys. Lots of energy.
This is really a beautiful, beautiful moment, and I just couldn't be any more grateful to people who supported Tom's Turkey Drive. It really is, it's a miracle, is what it is. It's a miracle.
They were here before we even showed up to block the traffic.
The morning began well before sunrise, much earlier than in years past. It's a happy day. When the KREM 2 crew arrived at the Spokane County Fairgrounds, it was dark. So what time did you get here?
4:45.
Well before the 6 a.m. start time, people were anxious to get a Thanksgiving meal that would fill their tables at a time when pantries are empty and celebrations are limited. COVID had stolen our ability to enjoy so many traditions, but it hadn't taken away our ability to give thanks.
I think that's why it was emotional for not just us, for most of the people that went through. And there were lots of joy that kind of goes sadness, and then just, I think people had been alone too in their homes, and they came out to see how many other people cared about them.
Outside, the Washington National Guard was directing traffic. And now the line is growing long. And by the time Up with KREM began, cameras were rolling on what seemed like a never-ending stack of cars.
So by the time I showed up and the rest of our folks showed up as well, there was already a line outside the front gate.
The Guard had about 100 people working the event, and there were hundreds of Second Harvest volunteers. People were on hand wearing masks and social distancing. Other workers were stuck in traffic, waiting to make it to the turnoff.
And when we drove in, we saw the line and we were just shocked. I had no idea.
November 24th, 2020. This was the beginning of the first ever drive-through Tom's Turkey Drive distribution. Priority number one was to keep everyone safe. The volunteers, the Guard, and the people picking up meals. There would be low to no contact as meals would be loaded directly in the vehicles, a necessity born out of a fiercely spreading virus.
If there's one thing I really took away was, we got these on, people have to be 10 feet from us in their car, they're waving, but I learned you can still tell in their eyes the gratitude that they have.
I felt so special and loved. Everyone was happy Thanksgiving, happy Thanksgiving.
Particularly touching was a lady who came through, very small car, but she and her kids had drawn pictures to put in the windows of the cars of saying thank you. And she was waving, and you could, again, in the eyes, you could just see the gratitude.
With so many cars that stretched for miles, it seemed daunting. But the momentary snarls in the streets would be just that, momentary. And soon it was obvious that months of planning had worked. While we saw record years of food relief needed, we also broke other records.
First, Spokane responded in an extraordinary way. A record.
Oh my gosh!
$277,000.
Wow! Is that including the cost of the
above and beyond?
This is after we've paid for all of the Thanksgiving dinners.
In the time of crisis, people and businesses, agencies and nonprofits delivered a message of support. Tom's Turkey Drive broke all records, increasing donations by hundreds of thousands of dollars. The numbers are still coming in, but behind the numbers are thousands of families that will benefit. And it will be needed. With the new year will be new challenges for food banks like Second Harvest. But in the meantime, we celebrate and say thank you to a community that cared. And to all of you that helped us make a meal.
When it came to the 21st year, and I couldn't really be first and foremost, because let's face it, I can't not shake hands or hug people, you know. I mean, I know it, just who I am. So instead, a bunch of these other people really stepped up. So it was, you know, it was probably, even though I was not personally at the stores, it was probably one of my most rewarding turkey drives ever. It's been a bear, and you folks just stepped up. I mean, my name's on it, but I can't do anything without the gazillion volunteers and without the gazillions of people donating and wanting to be part of this very special, unique event. And we didn't know if we could pull it off this year, but we did, and it was only because of the wonderful people that are our friends and neighbors here in Spokane.
We were looking for any wreckage, any signs of life, anything that we could recognize and help out.
He says they were just a couple of 100 yards away when the two planes collided above Lake Coeur d'Alene. We'll hear about what he saw and his effort to search for victims.
Did they get size of the aircraft or number of souls on board?
That's negative. Just be advised they're pulling bodies and they're getting them out of the water.
And crews facing incredible challenges during the recovery effort, how the depth of the lake is adding to those challenges.
Not in my 47 years being in this area. I've never seen something like this happen.
Tonight, several people are dead, more are missing. What we know about the two planes involved.
Also, we're getting reports unknown if it's one aircraft or two aircraft that crashed into each other.
Station 1 asking for additional resources. What do you guys need? Can you clear the scene of the boathouse and head down to this Rockford Bay call?
Engine 2 copies, headed to the boat.
Two airplane collisions. Sounds like somewhere in the vicinity of Summit Bay. They've got Coast Guard and dive teams en route.
It occurred in the middle of the lake.
At the time, rescuers didn't know yet what they would find when those first calls came in yesterday. We now know at least 4 people are dead. 4 more are still missing after those two planes collided and then crashed into Lake Coeur d'Alene. Recovery efforts now still well underway, more than 24 hours after that collision. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Whitney Ward.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Mark Hanrahan. Let's get right to it. We are learning more about the people who are on those planes and their family. The Kootenai County Sheriff's Office confirms a father and his 3 children were passengers on the Brooks seaplane. Their father confirmed their identity with our Amanda Rowley.
The Fredrickson family visited Lake Coeur d'Alene last weekend from their home in Oregon. This photo of Father Sean Fredrickson with his son and 2 stepchildren was taken just before they flew over the lake with Brooks Seaplane, a company stationed at the Independence Point dock. His wife April told me that while her family was taken too soon in an unimaginable way, she takes solace in the fact that they were doing what they love on an adventure. She asks people to keep her family in their prayers and do not waste a single minute with your loved ones. Today, the general manager of a country club in Lake Oswego, Oregon, said the loss of Fredrickson is devastating. According to Brian Fisher, Sean was an exceptional golf professional who is recognized for many of his major achievements in the sport. Here is a tribute set up for him at the country club. He says, but more importantly, Sean was a tremendous husband, father, and friend. Our love and heartfelt sympathy goes to his wife, April, his family, and friends during this time of loss. April posted on Facebook saying she is reeling from the loss, but adds her family had a wonderful weekend and opportunity to spend time together. A memorial is also in place at the float plane's stall with flowers left for the victims, along with a book for people to share their favorite memories of Brooks Seaplane or those who lost their lives. Amanda Rowley, KREM 2 News.
Meantime, search and rescue crews have been working nonstop as they try to recover passengers from the plane crash. KREM 2's Brandon Jones spoke with deputies today about how they'll continue to approach this situation over the next few days.
In an update from sheriffs, they told us they know the exact location of 2 more victims from that tragic plane accident. They've had boats out on the water all day long, but the challenge that comes with that job is how big Lake Coeur d'Alene is. So far, we know 3 people have been pulled from the water. Others are still missing.
Ideal conditions today, we got a little bit more wind, there's a little bit more boat traffic, but we're hoping that people will avoid that area to allow the searchers to work and do their job.
One of the resources that sheriffs have used in their search is a remote operated vehicle that goes underneath the water. It's not very large, but it can take videos and has the ability to grab objects. That was deployed throughout the evening last night, and that's how they were able to recover the 3rd victim. The next step will be finding the location of the remaining victims. Sonar boats that map out the bottom of the water can scan up to 1,000 feet, and that's another tool they've been utilizing. Lieutenant Ryan Higgins with the Kootenai County Sheriffs told me the sonar boats have been absolutely vital in this search and recovery effort.
We're going to take our time. We're going to try to bring closure to the families as quickly as possible, but we also want to ensure the safety of our personnel and the divers on scene, so we're not going to rush anything. Diving at that depth, multiple dives, is very dangerous, and we're going to really focus on the health of the divers because we don't want to have any other tragedies that happen at this.
The National Transportation and Safety Board will be investigating how the plane crash happened. The top priority is the victims of this crash, so it will take some time to recover the planes and leftover debris from the water. NTSB investigators are still waiting on permission to come to North Idaho from Seattle. There's been a delay in travel approval because of the coronavirus. There really wasn't anything out of the normal for air traffic this weekend, but sheriffs say they suspect the two planes just didn't see each other coming and collided midair. From Coeur d'Alene, Brandon Jones, KREM 2 News.
And tonight we are also learning the identity of the pilot flying the seaplane. The Kootenai County Sheriff's Office identified him as 58-year-old Neil Lunt from Liberty Lake. The Sheriff's Office says 5 of the 6 passengers on board have been identified. There was another male on the plane, but he has yet to be identified. All right, Whitney, there are incredible challenges that come with this kind of recovery effort underway.
That's absolutely right. The depth of the water in Lake Coeur d'Alene can vary greatly. In some places, it's up to 200 feet deep. Now, we know that this crash happened in the southern half of the lake, which is where the water typically out there in the middle is between 100 and maybe 140 feet deep. Now, the planes collided, then crashed into the water near Powderhorn Bay. Not the deepest water in the entire lake, but certainly some of the deeper water. The problem is the Kootenai County dive team is limited in how far its divers can go. That maximum for them is about 100 feet, which means the county now has to bring in a commercial dive team to assist in the recovery. And they are likely going to be out there every day this week, if not longer, because the divers are not only limited to how long they dive down that far, but also they're limited on how many dives they can do in a 24-hour period. And remember, it is extremely cold at that depth, and it is very, very dark. So while they know where the wreckage is, it's not an easy task to go down and try to find victims. And at this point, it's very important to remember they are not bringing up any of the plane wreckage right now. It is simply a search and recovery effort for human victims. Now, the Sheriff's Office told me this is basically being treated like a crime scene underwater, which means that when that commercial dive team does go in, they have to preserve the wreckage and any forensic evidence that exists so that investigators can figure out exactly what happened. And that, we know, is an effort that will likely take months. In the meantime, one of the planes involved is certainly part of one of the busiest and most popular sightseeing attractions there in Lake Coeur d'Alene. We're talking about the Brooks Seaplane, which operates out of the Independence Point area off the dock. It's a company that we have covered actually several times before, Mark.
Yeah, it's exactly right, Whitney. KREM 2's Taylor Bida was also live tonight covering that aspect of the story. And Taylor, you were actually able to get out on the water today and get a look at the crash site.
Yeah, Mark, that's right. We were able to take a boat out on Lake Coeur d'Alene and go to that part of the lake just to the east of Black Rock Bay to take a closer look ourselves. And we do have some images to show you from earlier this afternoon. It was around 2 p.m. when we were out on the water, and at that point, authorities weren't at the crash site just yet. Some buoys were marking the area where it appears the planes went into the lake. From up close, we didn't see any debris or wreckage. The buoys, though, appeared to be in the middle of the lake, or at least relatively speaking, the middle of the lake for that part of Lake Coeur d'Alene. We then went to Sunup Bay, where we saw Kootenai County Sheriff's Office boats meeting. It also appeared that some divers were preparing to head out as well. We did not see any barges or cranes in the area either. And as we've been mentioning tonight, one of those planes belonged to a popular and well-known seaplane company here in Lake Coeur d'Alene. Their dock that they use is actually behind me. I'm going to step to the side of the camera here while my photographer Dave zooms in. It's a dock that so many people see. Seaplanes that many people have seen before. I myself have seen them taking off over the years as well. It's no doubt a tragedy for many in Coeur d'Alene's tourism and hospitality business, and it's no doubt a staple in the downtown Coeur d'Alene scene as well. On Monday, a solemn memorial placed at a popular dock often known for fun times. It's at this dock where Brooks Seaplane, a popular Coeur d'Alene sightseeing company, has operated for some time. 6 people, including the pilot, were believed to be on one of Brooks's planes. An employee at a nearby business who spoke with us off camera this morning appeared to be clearly shaken by what had happened on Sunday. Online, the Brooks Seaplane website shows that the company operates 2 float planes and 1 helicopter. One of those planes is now tragically at the bottom of Lake Coeur d'Alene. Brooks Seaplane was a company we here at KREM had covered before. They had told us about how wildfire smoke had impacted their business, and just 1 year ago, the company was stressing how important it is for boaters and others to stay out of their way when they're taking off on the lake.
So it's really close. So I would say if you see us going, don't try to race us, don't try to cut in front of us, because we have to make a split decision. If we don't make that, something could happen.
On Brooks's website, the company offers a handful of different flight options for Lake Coeur d'Alene, Harrison, and the Chain Links, and the company said their helicopter tours were new this year. And we did reach out to Brooks for a comment regarding this tragic story. At this point, though, we are waiting to hear back. Live alongside Lake Coeur d'Alene, Taylor Vito, KREM 2 News.
Taylor, thank you very much. And tonight we are hearing from a witness who was on the water when he heard the collision and saw wreckage falling from the sky. Grant Merchant says he was actually wake surfing at the time. He says there were about 10 family and friends on that boat when that mid-air collision happened, just a couple of hundred yards for them. Here's how he describes what happened.
One of the girls in the boat actually screamed pretty loudly, which caught some of us off guard. As I was surfing, and shortly after she screamed, I heard a loud cracking explosion behind me, and you know, I turned back, and that's when I noticed a plane falling, you know, from the sky. I noticed a wing detached from the plane. From what I could make out was a fuselage on fire. It's definitely in flames as it was plummeting to the lake surface.
He says they quickly raced to the scene where another boater had located 2 bodies. Grant says he jumped in and worked to secure those bodies, actually placed life jackets around them in an effort to secure them while they waited for authorities. We'll hear more from him coming up on KREM 2 News at 10 and 11 o'clock tonight. Meantime, for more information on yesterday's crash and hearing from eyewitnesses, you can just text the word crash to 509-448-2000 and we'll send that information directly to your phone. All right, switching gears now. We have been enjoying lots of sunshine over the past several days, while typically hot temperatures of July have been kept at bay a bit. Let's get straight to meteorologist Michelle Boss for more on this week's forecast. Michelle?
Yeah, let's talk about the 90s, not the decade, not the Backstreet Boys, but the 90s as far as temperatures are concerned, because we haven't hit 90 degrees yet at the Spokane airport, even though they've likely been that warm in downtown or Spokane Valley. But typically we see our first 90-degree temperatures by middle to late June. Of course, that didn't happen. We averaged 19 90-degree days or warmer per year. Last year was a little bit cooler. We didn't hit triple digits all last year. But those first 90-degree temperatures can occur as early as May and sometimes as late as mid-July. And of course, back in 2018, we didn't see our first 90-degree day until July 9th. And I think we're going to have to wait a little bit longer this year. The forecast is looking a little bit on the cool side. Currently very nice outside, though, with lots of sunshine. We're in the lower 80s in the Spokane, Deer Park, and Coeur d'Alene area. A little bit warmer across central Washington with middle and upper 80s from Moses Lake up into Omak, and 85 degrees right now in Lewiston. But plenty of sunshine all across the inland northwest. Starting to see a little bit of thunderstorm activity develop just to the west of Omak across the northern Cascades. And we're going to see the chance for some thunderstorm activity tonight and tomorrow, though locally chances in Spokane are less than 20%. So this evening is looking great with mostly sunny skies, increasing clouds overnight with a slight chance of showers, temperatures dropping down into the 50s. And we're looking at a slight chance of showers here locally tomorrow with a high of 75. Cool but sunny on Wednesday, the high 75, and a nice sunny day on Thursday with the high of 80.
All right, Michelle, thank you. In the meantime, fires from Spirit Lake are flaring up again. This time, the Idaho Department of Land says firefighters are working hard to contain this fire that's already burned about 70 acres. Crews say the fire had actually reached 90% containment on Friday afternoon, but then by yesterday afternoon, that fire reached 2 large areas of heavy fuel and started throwing sparks back up a hill. So the lake area is now closed as crews work to bring that fire back under control. All right, still ahead tonight. Tomorrow marks the day that Washington's mask mandate officially goes into effect. That means that businesses will be able to refuse service. Restaurants and grocery stores could ask you to leave if you are not wearing a face covering. So we're going to hear from store owners, though, who say it's really not their job to monitor customers.
You're watching KREM 2 News at 6.
Well, Well, masks are now mandatory in 21 states across the country, and starting tomorrow here in Washington, business owners are supposed to tell you to leave their business if you're not wearing a mask. But our Seattle reporter Drew Mickelson talked to many business owners who say that really shouldn't be their job.
And we took a big hit, and just we're starting to recover and get back on our feet. And now we're dealing with another hurdle.
Andy Thielen says he doesn't know yet what he'll do when his liquor store opens Tuesday.
We'll encourage people to wear masks, but I don't know if we'll tell people to leave our establishment if they're not.
I will be signing a proclamation.
But that's exactly what Governor Jay Inslee wants every business owner in the state to do starting Tuesday. Those who fail to refuse service to customers who don't wear masks can face fines, even lose their business license. Thielen's employees must wear masks, but he fears forcing customers will mean losing customers.
They've put us in a position to police this rule or directive, and I think it's a tough spot they've put us in.
I don't think you should be wandering around without a mask on. This is what's keeping us safe.
Most in downtown Olympia today were wearing masks and support the mandate, like registered nurse Deborah Anderson.
If you really don't want to wear a mask, I want you to sign a form that says you don't get a respirator, because people are dying from this.
If you want to come here, you got to wear a mask.
At Well 80 Brewhouse for weeks, they've required customers to wear masks when they walk in and get up to use the restroom.
We've had a couple of times where some people have said some profanities to the staff just because they're the messenger.
Despite the occasional pushback, owner Chris Knudsen says most customers have been willing to mask up.
We're just trying to, educate, be nice, say, listen, you just can't come in, we're sorry. Eventually you'll be able to again, but let's get through this by wearing masks for now.
And also starting tomorrow here in Spokane, there will be curbside coronavirus testing at several various school locations. So take a look. Testing will be available on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays from 12:30 to 2:30 p.m. Guests will not be charged for these tests. Those with insurance, though, will be encouraged to instead go to their primary care provider. But if you'd like a list of all the locations of when this testing will be available, just text the word curbside to 509-448-2000 and we will make sure to send you that link. In the meantime, summer weather definitely starting to set in, but we are definitely having a cooler than normal summer, at least so far. Michelle Boss is in next to let us know just what we can expect as we head through the work week. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. Time now to talk about the weather. Meteorologist Michelle Boss joining us today. Michelle, it's been a great few days of the warm weather. Are there any surprises in store for the week?
Not really, unless you are expecting it to get really hot. We're actually going to keep those excessively hot temperatures at bay, and arguably we will probably have some of the best weather across the whole U.S. this week, at least temperature-wise. Lots of sunshine here in the Spokane area, but there are some dark clouds elsewhere across the inland northwest. As we take a look out in the Methow Valley at Sun Mountain Lodge, you can see some gray clouds there. We've been seeing a little bit of thunderstorm activity out in the northern Cascades out towards Omak, and we expect those folks to see a few thunderstorms later tonight and during the early morning hours tomorrow. But we're looking pretty good here this evening in the Spokane area. Today's high 81 degrees after a morning low of 55. Temperatures right where they should be this time of year. Record high 101 back in 1968. Here's a look at our weather headlines. We do have a slight chance of showers and an isolated thunderstorm tonight and early Tuesday, but I'd say our chances in Spokane are 20% or less. Otherwise, for tomorrow, looking at generally partly cloudy skies, a little bit on the breezy side, winds out of the southwest, gusting up to 25 miles per hour. Temperatures are going to be fabulous, though. This entire week, we're looking at highs from the mid-70s into the lower 80s. So actually coming in, averaging out just a little bit cooler than average. Our average high is around 81 degrees right now. Upper level low pressure, trough of low pressure is going to be moving into the area. That's going to first give us a shot of showers across far southeastern Washington, the central panhandle tonight and tomorrow morning, and then another shot of some thunderstorm activity mainly across far northeastern Washington and northern Idaho. Either way, Spokane could get clipped by one of those and see a few showers. But Future Tracker keeping the skies clear this evening. Going to see a few clouds develop later in the evening, especially across the Palouse down into Lewiston. That's where those showers are going to develop and push towards the northeast. Again, skirting the Spokane area, better chance for seeing showers in Coeur d'Alene. Then for tomorrow afternoon, showers developing across the mountains to the north. Again, could see a rogue thunderstorm here as well, but chances are pretty low. Wednesday will clear things out, bring back mostly sunny skies, but temperatures will still stay a little bit below average. So A little bit cooler tomorrow than what we saw today in Moses Lake, and afraid of highs in the lower rather than middle 80s. A little bit breezy out there. Could see some gusty winds up to 30 to 40 miles per hour out in that area. Not quite as windy here, but we'll likely see some wind gusts up around 20, 25 miles per hour. Highs generally in the low to mid 70s. Better chance of that thunderstorm activity in Idaho. And then highs in the upper 70s in Lewiston, but cooler in the 60s for Grangeville, Kellogg, and Pullman, where they have a better chance of seeing some wet weather. Here's a look at the extended forecast. And again, great in the temperature department. Mid 70s Tuesday and Wednesday. A couple of low 80s thrown in there, and plenty of sunshine, mainly dry weather right on in through the weekend. Well, stick around. We'll be back right after the break.
Welcome back. The Inland Northwest is fairly unique when it comes to college athletics. We have 4 Division I schools, which is pretty uncommon for an area with our population size. Each one of these schools has their own distinct history, and as we'll delve into the next few weeks, their own distinct mascot. How did these colleges get their mascots, and how have they evolved over time? We're going to start down in Moscow to find out how the Vandals became the Vandals. Idaho was founded in 1889, but the Vandals name did not pop up until 1918 when Argonaut student sports writer Harry Lloyd McCarty referred to the Idaho basketball team as a gang of vandals due to the talent on the squad. The legend is that he said they vandalized their opponent, but that's not exactly correct. When he wrote the first article when he called the team the Vandals, they hadn't played a game yet. The nickname stuck for the basketball team though, and in 1919 the yearbook called them the Vandals as well. By 1921 there was a lot of talk around campus that the school needed an official mascot. However, not too many people were in support of the Vandals, including the football team, who really didn't like the name. By February of 1922, people were getting impatient. Most people didn't like the name Vandals, but apparently they just decided to go with it because after the basketball season, all teams started getting called the Vandals by the school newspaper. Are you tired of looking at newspaper clippings? So am I. Let's get to some pictures. In 1923, the school officially started calling all teams the Vandals, and Empire the dog was introduced as the mascot, wearing a Vandals cape. However, Empire didn't last long as the Great Dane was stolen before the start of the 1924 school year. In 1924, the first illustration of a Vandal appeared, dubbed Baby Joe many years later. He was eventually turned into a statue that the school still has. In the 1930s and 40s, the Vandal was depicted kind of like a Greek god. There are a ton of illustrations of the Vandal that look, well, very un-Vandal-like. The 1950s was when the Vandals mascot got a human name. A cartoon Vandal like this one was displayed on the side of the student union. People named him Joe, and it's stuck to this day. But don't think there weren't other iterations. We're going to get around to that in a second. The first time we saw something that resembled the mascot we see on Idaho sidelines today was in 1956, when student Bill Curry and his mom created a Vandal paper mache head. In October of 1982, Bob Vandal, a more portly fellow, was born. Not a great picture, but you get the picture. However, Bob didn't last long because in 1985, Joe Vandal was back, much to the disdain of this cheerleader. They decided that year to also have a female Joe Vandal, aka Josie Vandal. She didn't seem to stick around long either, though. In the 1990s, Joe became what we know today, although there was a brief blunder, some may call it. In 2001, the school introduced a second mascot, Inflatable Joe. He was 9 feet tall and so reviled that this blurry photo is one of the only pictures Idaho has of him. In September of that year, the Argonaut ran an opinion piece aptly titled, "Joe, You Blow." Unsurprisingly, he didn't come back for 2002. The school has kept the singular Joe Vandal since, and there you have it, the history of the Vandal and how he became known as Joe. As I said earlier, we're going to do this with all of our Division I schools in the Inland Northwest. Mascots are interesting because they provide us a look back in time. Sometimes bad decisions were made, sometimes good decisions were made, and sometimes absolutely hilarious decisions were made. I can't wait to show you this series over the next few weeks. That's it for sports.
Welcome back. We want to get a recap of what we know from yesterday's plane crash at Lake Coeur d'Alene. So We know right now the name of the victim flying the seaplane was 58-year-old Neil Lunt. The Kootenai County Sheriff's Office says 4 people are dead. At least 4 others are still missing. The crash happened after 2 planes collided into each other and then fell into the water between Powderhorn and Black Rock Bay. This happened at around 2:30 yesterday afternoon. The Kootenai County Sheriff's Office says they recovered 2 victims from the lake on Sunday and later found a 3rd victim in 127 feet of water.
Randy, my friend sitting next to me, said you were waving your hand because I couldn't get a word out. I couldn't explain what I was seeing. And then I finally yelled out, "Look, look," and just a huge ball of flame.
Sunup Bay boat launch has been closed as crews continue to search. Authorities now asking people to avoid the crash scene, and they believe there were no survivors. Investigators are still working to find out what led up to that plane crash over Lake Coeur d'Alene. We now know at least 4 people are dead. Again, 4 people still missing after those 2 plane crashes yesterday. Recovery efforts are still underway. Meantime, a local pilot shared with our Amanda Rowley some perspective on how this may have happened.
Many questions still surround the fatal plane crash on Lake Coeur d'Alene. Meantime, families mourn the all too soon and unexpected loss of their loved ones. Based on witness accounts, the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office believes the 2 planes collided in the air, then crashed into the lake.
You tend to see more planes in the summertime when it's nice.
Scott Stone lives in Spokane and is going on 6 years with a private pilot's license. I asked him what visual challenges a pilot might face while flying over Lake Coeur d'Alene.
Personally, I've flown over Lake Coeur d'Alene, and there's times where I have started to lose contact with air traffic control, and at that point, you don't have to stay in contact with air traffic control if you don't want to, or the best thing really would be to just get up higher in the air.
Can you kind of explain what those rules are?
So in our region, there's controlled airspace around Spokane International Airport, as well as Feltzfield Airport. But once you get out of those airspaces, you don't have to stay in contact with air traffic control if you're flying under what's called visual flight rules. And in all cases, in the visual flight rules, it is your job as pilot in command to maintain separation with other aircraft in the region.
What are you doing when you're following visual flight rules?
With visual flight rules, I mean, it has the name because it's literally like visual, looking out the window. There are rules in place to maintain separation from other aircraft, but there are also processes that we follow as pilots to kind of scan the airspace, looking for potential traffic.
You mentioned it may be harder than you think it is to kind of keep your head on a swivel there. Why is that?
Planes are moving. They're moving really fast, and so and also if you think of the profile of an airplane, I mean, if you're looking straight onto an airplane and the wing is flat, it's much harder to see.
Amanda Rowley, KREM 2 News.
And for more information on yesterday's plane crash and to hear from eyewitnesses, just text the word crash to 509-448-2000. We'll send that directly to your phone.